What really is the big tackle when you want to give them a book that, will challenge them? It's going to be the vocabulary. That's really where the challenge comes in. So giving them the right tools is basically teaching them the Greek and Latin roots, where they can look at a word, break it down, know the parts, know what they mean, and be able to use those as context clues to determine the word meaning and go on in their story. Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode in Adventures of Comprehension. So tonight we're going to be talking about strategies to use with gifted students. So I've got 3 specific strategies that you can use in reading, and then a few that we'll be able to use really in any subject as well. All right, so the first thing that I definitely wanted to mention as far as a strategy to help with gifted students is to make sure that you are teaching them Greek and Latin roots. So I know that when you get into higher grades, this is something that hopefully you're doing with all of your students, but specifically grades like 2nd, 3rd, maybe even 4th, this isn't something that you typically do. But for your gifted students, this is a number 1 must do. Here's why. When it comes to your students being gifted, specifically in reading, what happens is, they are reading above grade level, which means they need to read books that are clearly above the grade that they are in, hence the word above grade level, right? But a lot of times those books have higher vocabulary that they may not know. So we need to give them tools to be able to read above grade level and to then also figure out and use context clues and word parts to break down the words that they do not understand and hopefully determine their meanings as well. And that all boils down to teaching Greek and Latin roots. So by doing this, it's going to help develop your students' vocabulary. It's also going to help your students read those books that are at those higher levels. What really is the big tackle when you want to give them a book that, will challenge them? It's going to be the vocabulary. That's really where the challenge comes in. So giving them the right tools is basically teaching them the Greek and Latin roots, where they can look at a word, break it down, know the parts, know what they mean, and be able to use those as context clues to determine the word meaning and go on in their story. Let's move on to idea number 2 for strategies to use with our gifted students. And it is to focus on multiple intelligence. So what we can do as teachers to help our gifted students is allow them to express their learning not in the typical way that all the other students are doing so. This doesn't necessarily work for every single lesson, but we can easily embed these ideas of multiple intelligences throughout the week or throughout the units that we are teaching to make sure those students have ample opportunity to express their learning in a more complex and in-depth way. So 1, when we're doing this, it gives students options, and students who are gifted are so intrinsically motivated to learn, and options are a big, yes, they love options because they want to pick what motivates them and what's exciting for them. So you can have 2 or 3 options that are linked to 2 or 3 different intelligences, give them those 3 options and allow them to run with it. Also, by giving them these options, it helps you learn a lot more about those gifted students. Gifted students sometimes are a little bit harder to crack. What is it in them that really lights their fire? So by using multiple intelligences in the classroom and giving them those options, you're learning a lot about your gifted students in that one lesson. So it's really highly recommended. And then also, by using multiple intelligence, giving them the options and doing all of this, it really helps to take their learning to that advanced level without just giving them more work or work outside of their grade level. A lot of teachers have the misconception that, I'm just going to have my gifted students walk around and help other students. That's what they can do. That is not a good use of their time. If they know a concept, if they already have it mastered, then they shouldn't be spending or wasting their time continuing to work on it. They can work on it in a more in-depth and complex way through the multiple intelligences activities that you are going to provide for them. We are ready for number 3, and number 3 is a big one, and that is to use playlists in your classroom. Now, I know you're probably automatically thinking music. This has nothing to do with the music, kind of. But if you think about a music playlist, right, that's a song list and that goes in a specific order. That's basically a music playlist, right? And you have different playlists for different genres or different occasions, like Christmas playlist, a summertime vibes playlist, things like that. A playlist in the classroom is a differentiation technique that allows students to work independently through a standard or a skill in order to get to mastery. So think about it as a list of to-do items. So you are going to start with the easiest items at the beginning and the most difficult items at the end. Throughout the playlist are going to be activities that are going to teach the students about the skill. There are going to be activities for them to practice the skill, and then there are going to be activities to show off their understanding of the skill to the teacher for a grade or for a check-in process, whatever that may be. So it's literally a list of items. So it may start out, let's say they're working on conflict, man versus nature, those kind of things, like really advanced conflict. That would be a great way for your gifted students who maybe are in 2nd and 3rd grade to really understand problem and solution. So you create a playlist and you say, okay, I'm going to show them this video on YouTube to get them to introduce the concept of conflict and to get them to understand the 3 different types of conflict that we can find within a story. So they're going to watch this video. That's number 1 on their playlist. Then number 2 might be create a poster to talk about the 3 different types of conflict. That's number 2. Simple. That way they can see, they can go back to the video if they need to, and they're kind of creating a visual for themselves. Then number 3 may be to analyze fairy tales and to kind of organize them by title into which types of conflict they fall in. So you're using stories that they already know. They're not having to read something new, but they're practicing that skill. So, and then it goes on and on. There can be other videos embedded that you find. There are other activities that they're going to do. And then eventually at the end, you're going to have a project for them to do that's the most difficult, and it's going to really showcase their learning. And so you give them this playlist and they work on it during their independent time or during the lessons that they don't need to be a part of. So if you're teaching problem and solution to your 3rd grade classroom and your gifted students don't need this, then that's the time that they work on their playlist. So you kind of allow them to work on it when whatever you're teaching does not apply to them. So it may take them a week to get through their playlist, and that's perfectly fine. It shouldn't take them a day. It shouldn't take them 2 days. 3, 4, 5 days at the most, yes, if you really make a strong playlist. So you would make it digital. That way there's links in there to click, or you can use QR codes to have them scan. That way it takes them to the videos. Yes, it does take some time to make these. And that's the one kind of drawback of playlists is it does take time at the beginning for the teacher to find all these things and put it all together in a beautiful playlist. But when you make one, you have it forever. And you know you're going to have gifted students in the future. So you create a folder on your desktop that says playlists, and then you make little folders inside for each different skill or strategy, and you plop them in there and you have them forever. The only thing that you will need to do next year is check the links to make sure the videos are still there, and you're good to go. So I highly recommend this. One, it doesn't waste students' time. They should not be sitting through a lesson of something that they already have mastered. Let them move on. Number 2, it allows for flexibility. Lets the students who are gifted learn at their own rate. And then also supports the differentiation without loads of help from the teacher. You don't have to worry about developing all these lessons that you have to do with them in small group. Now, Throughout the playlist, you can embed times like meet with teacher in small group could be, number 7. And so, by the time they get to number 7, it's probably going to be 2 or 3 days from now. They're going to come to you, and then you have time to meet with them for 10 to 15 minutes where you have maybe a little lesson prepared for them. You've done your kind of check-in, and they keep moving on in their playlist. So there's all kinds of things you can embed in your playlists that allows you to them not be 100% away from you, but check-in points, turn in this activity and get feedback on it from the teacher. And then you are able to see kind of what's going on, how are they doing, and if they're, completely floundering, then you pull them from the playlist and you put them back into the problem and solution lesson. Like, it's not a big deal. So playlists are phenomenal. They are a new and inventive way to really help your students. Technically, you could do this for all your students. You could have 3 different levels of playlists. You could have one for your lower students, your on level, and your high. And then everyone kind of works on their own pace, and you just kind of meet with people as they go. That's just a discussion for another day. But if you're really looking something for your gifted students, I highly recommend developing playlists. They are phenomenal. All right, friends. Well, that is all we have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you all next week. Bye.